All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jermaine Hinds. I'm glad to be here today as a part of this InsectNet Career Symposium. I'll be sharing my talk called Into Entomology and Finding My Way. Um, mhm. And to start out, I just want to kind of do a general rundown of my educational background. I got my Ph.D. in entomology from Penn State University from 2012 to 2017. Prior to that, I was at the University of Maryland, where I worked on a master's in entomology from 2009 to 2012. And then before that, as an undergrad, I was at University of Maryland College Park from 2005 to 2009. And so I'll talk a little bit about how I made my journey from, high school to my current position at SARE. And just to tell you a little bit about start off with a little bit about my current position. I work for the SARE program, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. And the SARE program is a USDA NEFA funded regional competitive grants program. So there's 4 regions across the US that makes grants and educational programs for farmers, ag producers, and just general audiences. So these grant programs fund different initiatives that support sustainable agriculture, and we usually identify that as supporting 3 things: the planet, so through environmental stewardship; profit, to stay sustainable, a farmer must maintain profit; and then quality of life for farmers in the community, ensuring that farmer health, producer health is prioritized. To tell you a little bit about the types of SARE, grants that SARE provides or funds, they include farmer rancher grants for farmers and ranchers, research and education grants. A lot of professors from land grant universities get these. There's also a graduate student grant, which is I want to highlight for this talk. And so these fund graduate students who want to do applied research in sustainable agriculture topics, and they fund grants for up to 2 years for $15,000. This is in the Northeast, but in other regions, the funding caps may be different. And I included a link there to more grant information. And so SARE produces lots of grants. And so since 1988, they've produced over 8,000 grants, almost $400 million in funding. And so as a part of SARE, I work for SARE Outreach, and so highlighted the 4 individual regions, but there's a 5th region called the Outreach Arm, and so we're responsible for national communication. So distilling a lot of that research-based information from grants and grants projects into national-facing publications. And so priorities translating those results of SARE-funded projects into practical, how-to, accessible information for diverse agricultural audiences. Those includes books, bulletins, videos, and other interactive resources. And I've included some of the more popular ones. Managing cover crops profitably was huge, especially if you're in agriculture. We recently released Manage Weeds on Your Farm. It's a weed management Bible for pretty much talks about all kinds of weed management strategies. So to talk a little bit more about myself and my role within SARE. So I serve as the technical review specialist. And what I do is I'm responsible for all technical review of publications that is leaving SARE Outreach's office. And as a part of that, some of my duties include technical review. So again, providing technical review of publications. I participate in regional grant review. So I've participated in graduate student grants, farmer grants, and reviewing them. I oversee external review processes. So when we're developing publications, I provide review for it, and we seek out subject area experts to provide their skills to the review as well, to make sure that this is accurate, timely, and responsive to farmers' needs. Part of my job includes research analysis. So across those 8,000 projects, I scoured the database to identify and evaluate projects that are strong projects or would make sense to elevate into a national publication. Um, I advise on topical areas in sustainable agriculture. And one of the interesting things is when my first project at SARE was about pest management, which I was charged with kind of revitalizing our old pest management content. And so this was the bulletin I produced. And again, another part of my role includes a lot of writing, editing. So writing, editing manuscripts, incorporating feedback from review teams and so forth. So now I want to take a step back from my current position and talk about myself, how I fell into entomology. As a kid, I always had a long-standing interest in biology, ecology topics. I was fascinated with animals and plants, and I was always watching science shows like Magic School Bus or Pokemon. They have their taxonomy in there, and so I was always kind of very interested in like learning about animals. We had zoo books and things like that, and so I always wanted to kind of do something with that in the future. And after high school, I was unsure about what to do. I was a first generation college student. My family is from Jamaica. So up here in the top here, this was our farmhouse in Jamaica. You can see a goat behind me. So this is kind of the origin, so my family has roots in agriculture. And so that I suspect that's where a lot of my interest in animals and things came from. And so, so back to kind of after high school, I had good grades in high school, but I, kind of towards the end of high school, I didn't necessarily know what to do. Moms were saying, hey, it's either you go to college or join the military, So, I applied to University of Maryland College Park and I got in. And so I was focused on doing a general biology major in Bachelor's of Science. And so throughout the undergrad, I kept up good grades, but I still didn't quite know what I want to do. I did love animals. I entertained thoughts of being a zookeeper, working at an aquarium, entertained thoughts of becoming a vet, things like that. But I think it was in the end of my sophomore year, my undergraduate advisor, Bill Lamps, he pulled me into the office and was just kind of asking me about my post-graduation plans. And, he was like, are you planning to apply to graduate school? And, I asked him, what's that? I had no idea what it was or what the potential of it was. And so, after that, he invited me to take part in an independent study where I'd kind of help him on some of his research tasks. I remember he would assign me like research paper topics where he challenged me to go to the library and find a topic on this particular insect or that. So he was familiarizing me with the beginnings of research or finding information and things like that. And so as I started to learn more and more about entomology, it started to capture my interest for a few reasons. I could learn more about animals and ecology, but in the agricultural setting, which tied back to my upbringing or my family history. Able to conduct applied research. So not only just use this knowledge about insect and animals, but apply it in ways that can help our planet. So again, doing work that contributed to our environment. And so after my kind of initial workings with Dr. Lamps, he talked to me about a new faculty member that was coming to Maryland, and he encouraged me to apply for a summer job or summer research opportunity. And so I joined Dr. Cerruti Hooks' lab as a summer job. So Dr. Cerruti Hooks, he had joined on, I think it was around 2009 or something. I can't remember at this time, but he was very interested in insect ecology and biological control, or so using plants to manage pests in agricultural systems. And I thought that was really cool how, plants and animals are playing these roles in these kind of fairly mundane systems. Agriculture was just whatever to me at the time, but through this position I was able to participate in summer research. So I think we were doing a project in looking at weed and how fungicides might affect the insect community. I thought it was really cool. So I wanted to continue down that, and so applied for a master's program in entomology in Dr. Hook's lab. And so as as a master's student, the focus of my research was cultural control of cucurbit pests using an interplanted cover crops. And so it was kind of learning from Dr. Hooks is research focused. I was assigned to this project, and I, got to build important kind of starting out researcher skills. And so I learned the basics of field research, laying out plots, sampling techniques, sweep net sampling, pitfall sampling, different things like that. As a master's student, I also taught general biology to undergrad. So I got a chance to practice my teaching and presenting skills. Grant writing, while I was at Maryland, I actually applied for a SARE graduate student grant. I didn't get it this time, but the attempt was worth it. Got some valuable feedback, and I got to just practice grant writing. As a result of my master's, we published, I think, 3 articles, peer-reviewed articles, first author articles. So again, that it got me to build my technical writing skills. And again, as a part of the master's program, we had to learn basic statistic analysis skills. So using SAS or other statistic software to kind of evaluate your project and things like that. And so this is the cover crop I was working with. It was called sun hemp. And this is me standing in some sun hemp. And so after my master's program, I felt kind of good with my new skills, but I still wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. And so decided to continue my education. And one thing I forgot to mention about that, the master's program is, so we're looking at insects, we're looking at plant growth, and we're also looking at nematodes, which are soil-borne organisms. And so we were collaborating with a researcher at the University of Hawaii to process those nematode samples. And she was very interested in collaborating with me in a PhD. So I would be going to Hawaii. I would be potentially going to Hawaii to start a PhD. And kind of in the midst of this, my original advisor, Bill Lambs, was encouraging me to broaden my horizons, apply to more schools. And so I decided to apply to Penn State. Cerruti knew a couple of people there. He was encouraging me to apply. And so I put in an application. And so I had a choice to pick between University of Hawaii at Manoa and Penn State University. And so kind of the decisions I struggled with that was the expense and distance, right? And so Hawaii was a 12-hour flight away from Maryland, which I grew up in. And again, that's taking me away from my family, the distance, the cost of living was higher, and the student stipend didn't really adjust for that high cost of living. And if I were to go to Hawaii, my focus would be in nematology instead of entomology. With Penn State, it was relatively closer to home. Instead of a 12-hour flight, it's a 4-hour drive. Penn State offered funding. So when I joined Penn State, I got a Bunton Waller Fellowship. So that helped me greatly during my time there. I met when I was debating on coming to Penn State, they reached out and invited me to a recruitment weekend. And so that's where, I think it was 2 days in February, we come on campus, meet faculty across the department, interview with, I think up to 3 to talk about research interests, where you think you could potentially go in with your research and things like that. And so after interviewing with Mary Barbercheck, I decided to join her lab. She was a really great advisor. I think we clicked really well. Our research interests were aligned. She's focused a lot in sustainable organic agriculture, soil entomology, women in sciences. She was a great ally to have during my time there. And so as I became a PhD student, my original research interests morphed from kind of using cultural controls or plants to control insects to explore beneficial insects. So, insects that prey on pest insects. And so I was interested in seeing how we can use diverse mixtures to attract and sustain beneficial insects on a farm. And so some of the skills that the PhD challenged me to work on was kind of building those existing skills. I was comfortable when I initially started the PhD program because I've published, I wrote my thesis, I, done some extension and things like that. But it challenged me in a whole new way in terms of project management. And so during my master's, I was sort of assigned to a project, whereas during the PhD, I had to conceptualize and develop a project. And that's a whole different ball game. You have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of iterative kind of, you know, tearing it down and building it back up. And that could be academically exhausting, I would say. But, if you stay the course, you get some valuable experience, collaboration, through networking with students there, postdocs. I learned about another scientist that was doing a new marking technique that could help me track beneficial insects. And so that turned into another opportunity. Um, um, Grant writing, Mary always encouraged all of her students to apply for grants. And so applied for a SARE grant and got a SARE grant while I was in Mary's lab. Another thing I wanted to highlight during this time was supervising research. And so as a PhD student, I was able to have a number of undergraduate assistants at different times where I can talk to about entomology, talk to about graduate school, talk to them about kind of what I'm doing. And many of them, just like me, had no idea any of this existed or the potential for any of it. And so sort of after talking about kind of how I came to Penn State, I want to speak to some of the challenges I faced in the graduate program. And so with a background in entomology, the academic challenges felt reasonable. I was fine keeping up good grades. I was fine with the writing, the research. I was familiar with it, but I didn't expect the social challenges as much. So I grew up in Maryland, PG County, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And so coming to Penn State required me to move from a fairly city suburban area to a rural farming area. And so I had to deal with some isolation and culture shock. State College, Pennsylvania looks very different um, from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. The distance can wear on you. It's 200 miles from family. So that was a 4-hour drive. And so I'd probably go home maybe every 3 months, maybe once a month, but it really kind of highlighted just kind of some strain with kind of separating from your family, your support system at home. State College, compared to Maryland, there's very few people of color, so that was another layer to kind of process and deal with, during the day to day. And a big part of that was, missing cultural foods. And so, mentioned that my family is Jamaican. And so, just being able to have cultural foods like plantains or, things like that. Or, at the time I had dreadlocks, or so buying hair care products and things like that was a lot more difficult in State College. So they're kind of, they seem trivial at first, but, as you're in it, it wears on you. In the graduate program, also faced some microaggression, and this was from students, from residents around State College, and the Center County, some faculty and staff. And these are some of the kind of quotes that I remember from back then. In certain cases, while I'm talking about my research or presenting, you get comments like, you sure what you're talking about? I remember one time, me and my friends were going out, and a girl jumped in front of me as if to protect her friends and saying, "Safety, safety." That was rough. Going to the store and getting asked, "Are you staying out of trouble?" Or "You're proof that anyone could get a PhD." I think a lot of these kind of sayings, they might sound harmless at first, but they could feed into feelings of imposter syndrome. As a beginning professional, you're trying to learn the ropes, and it could contribute to feelings of not belonging, or I'm underqualified, or, do I know what I'm talking about? So those are definitely some of the challenges I had to deal with. And, I talk a little bit about how I deal with it in the slide after this one, but there's a lot of successes in this graduate program that really helped set the stage or help me build professional development skills. And one of the biggest successes was being awarded the Sloan Minority PhD Program Award. And this was, the premise for this was that, students of color graduate with far more debt than their white counterparts. And so this was supplemental funding to offset a lot of that. And so this opened up new lanes in research. Enabled me to hire a student to help me with some of my lab work. It put me in community with a lot of other people of color around Penn State. Um, we yearly had our annual, I think it was SREB meeting where we'll all travel to one of the cities like Atlanta or whatever, and we'll share our research, do professional development, and just kind of be around each other and kind of get recharged. And that was a really important part of my program and something I look forward to every year. Shout out to shout out to Derek James for the Sloan Minority PhD Award. He was the one that introduced me to the program and kind of helped me do the application. Another success was being awarded a SARE graduate student grant. Coming from Maryland, I was kind of felt salty with SARE because I got rejected the first time, and so, the second time I really wanted to knock it out the park. So I added a collaboration where I would work with a USDA scientist who's doing protein marking, and I incorporated that in my research to track beneficial insects as you include flowering resources to support them. Another part of it was, just doing conference travel. I think going to Entomology Society of America meetings was huge because you get to see what your peers are doing, you get to practice presenting your work, you get to talk to scientists from around the country. And it was really cool because, while me and fellow students didn't necessarily go to the same school, I would see them every year at the entomology meeting. In fact, I met a kid at recruitment weekend who decided to go to Cornell, and I saw him every year at Entomology Society of America meetings. So that was really cool to kind of build a network of professionals as you're growing. So again, how I dealt with sort of the isolation and culture shock was around building community. So, I was very interested in kind of the extension or teaching these agricultural techniques or scientific techniques to undergraduates or, kind of just general public. And so kind of throughout my program, I was able to help mentor quite a few undergrad research assistants. I participated in Upward Bound program during one of the years, which was a program that brought middle school students from surrounding counties onto Penn State to kind of get a taste for what college would be like. And, I taught them entomology and all of that. And so this is a picture of us at the Penn State Arboretum. We took them there collecting, they had a blast. And yeah, just different undergrads were very important for me completing my program. Building community. So a lot of my peers at Penn State was so instrumental in developing, kind of building that professional, personal support beyond the program. I was able to develop lifelong friendship. And so, this is my wife now, Nikita. She wasn't an entomologist, but she did a program in education, and she was very instrumental in kind of keeping me motivated, keeping me positive, encouraging me that I could do it. Megan Wilkerson was another alumni of Penn State, still my best friend. We talk probably once a month still about professional development, what kind of opportunities you're out there looking after. And another alumni, Ellen Leong, I saw her last year and she's in Florida now. Again, another good friend I made out of the program, very instrumental in kind of keeping that community. And again, my family, came up to see me while I was there. We had a surprise party and all of that. So it was really important in kind of keeping me going. And so talking a little bit about the benefits of the degree. So on the other side, so I think getting a graduate student grant initially put me on SARE's radar as a student. And so, after I graduated from my PhD, I spent about 3 months applying. I was interested in doing jobs like maybe an extension where I can do some of that teaching and research. But before long, I was actually contacted by somebody from SARE who saw my grant, saw that I was recently graduating and was impressed with my work, and they encouraged me to apply. And so I did. During the interview, I think kind of having that degree helped me in a lot of ways because it straight away boosted my income earning potential, made me more formidable in negotiating. Um, but kind of looking back at the skills I developed during the program, those were hugely important in helping me develop a broad scientific knowledge around agriculture. So it's not only entomology, but many other disciplines intersect with entomology, weed science, agronomy, all kind of different things. So it helps to have a kind of big picture view of things as well. And I think the PhD helps position me for faster and further professional growth. Um, some of the things I noticed at my job, it offers me quite a bit of agency and autonomy. With a PhD behind my name, folks listen to my recommendations. So I mentioned a lot of my job is overseeing technical review. Um, I use my autonomy and agency to advocate for stipends for farmer reviewers, because a lot of times farmers are spread thin and being asked to contribute to different parts of extension programs, grants, and things like that. But we oftentimes forget to compensate them appropriately. So I use my agency, my voice to get that actually codified now. So, not farmer ranchers, nonprofits, people like that get compensation, and I'm working on getting academics getting accredited for or acknowledged in their reviews of our publications. And just to highlight some of the skills that I constantly use day to day in my job, again, research and analysis, writing, editing, peer review, networking, traveling, collaboration are all different parts of the job that kind of come out. Last year, we did a tour of the 4 regions where we did a video project. We had to go to 4 organic farms and interview them about organic management techniques. And that was a really cool way to kind of get on the ground, interact with farmers, see what's going on in the agricultural landscape across the country. And I find that very valuable as I continue to develop as a professional. And that's about all I have. And so if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer any.